and welcome to our new podcast format, Voices of Leadership. In this new format, we talk to leadership experts from around the world, sometimes in English and sometimes in German. We are interested in what leadership means today and what motivates people who motivate others. In each episode, we provide a personal, genuine insight into the question, what does it mean to lead, learn, and support others in today's age? I'm Jana, and I'm very excited to accompany you through this series. And for the past 4 years, I've been working at MDI, mostly in marketing, and I've dealt with a lot of content on leadership, such as blog articles, newsletters, concepts, but mostly behind the scenes rather than in front of the camera. And now I get to bring the people behind our leadership program in front of the camera. And this is exactly what we're doing today. My next guest is Marcin Swierkocki, an experienced trainer, coach, and MDI partner. He has worked with numerous companies to develop effective training and coaching solutions. And today we will be talking about full-range leadership models, which is Marcin's expertise. I am very excited to find out what this really means and how versatile different leadership styles are. Now I want to welcome Marcin, who is already sitting virtually in front of me. Hello, Marcin. Welcome.
Hi, Jana. Thank you very much for this introduction, and I'm very much impressed by the way that you have pronounced my first and my second.
I've done my practice. I'm very glad. I'm very glad it shows. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling very well, very good, and very happy to be here with you as your guest. And thank you so much for this intro, which is just behind us. Yes, that's right. I'd love to talk with us about the full range leadership model. One of the concepts that I do admire, one of the concepts that I do as well explain during the classes that I do run with my attendees.
I'm very excited to hear more about this. But before we get into it, I will ask you one other question. But before this, are you ready to be our voice of leadership today?
Of course he is. Yeah, lovely.
So,
Yeah, of course I am.
Okay, perfect. To begin with, if you were a superhero in training, what would your superpower be?
I would say total contextual adaptability. That's something what's behind this question, which you've just addressed, and that would allow me to move on the continuum of different leadership styles that are in the full range leadership model, starting from laissez-faire style, leadership behavior, through transactional leadership behavior, up to transformational leadership behavior. So 3 different leadership styles, but my role as a leader is to adapt to the situation and adapt to the person. So that's why I've said that my superpower would be total contextual adaptability.
And how do you see this adaptability in your daily life? Like how does this skill show for you?
It's related to me and I would say it's related to me and my students, or the ones who are in the class, and it's related to this, that I have to focus on the needs of my individuals, have to actively and deeply listen to this, what is behind even these needs, before I move on with any commands from my end. So it's more about, especially working with the younger generation. So it's about understanding them before using any of those 3 leadership styles. Each one of those styles can be effective, but the ones that are mostly effective need my activity, and the one that is mostly effective is the one which is in this continuum named transformational leadership.
Yes, that makes sense. I tried to do my research on the leadership styles, and this is also what I found out on the transformational leadership style. And it also rang a bell with me when you said that you really tried to listen to also your attendees as well. So would you say that you try to practice this transformationality in your trainings as well?
Absolutely, yes. It is possible. It is possible not to lead a class only through task completion because completing task is more transaction.
Yes, of course.
But working with a group of delegates using all four elements that are in the transformational leadership behavior, it's much more appreciated by the delegates. And whenever I'm talking about all of those four elements that are in the full range in the transformational leadership behavior, I'm talking about individual consideration. I'm talking about intellectual stimulation. I'm talking about inspiring motivation, and I'm talking about idealized influence as the
Mhm.
fourth element. So four I's that do work for transformational leadership.
I would love to ask you a bit more on this in a bit.
Mhm.
But I'm very glad that you've already explained a bit what transformational leadership is about. But before we get into the styles, I would like to ask you something because you also mentioned the working with different generations. And what I would like to know about this is, I mean, you've been working with leaders for many years, and have you noticed that anything has really changed in leadership since you started?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Well, I'm on the market for 3 decades, or we're even a little bit more now. Yes, I can say that patterns have shifted. I would say that older leaders are used and are influenced by traditional hierarchical structures. And often, and very often, what I can see is defaults that they do like working with is the transactional leadership. Whereas younger generations, younger leaders, tend to prioritize value-driven transformational leadership. So there is a shift from a traditional hierarchical structure,
Mhm.
which is where I can work very well using transactional leadership, to the one which is preferred by younger generations who like to work uh, under under a set of values that is appreciated by them. And if it's as well appreciated by their leader, then they might be faster completing their tasks and their duties.
So then on this, like if we stay with the full range leadership model, where would you put the different generations then? Do you think there can be such a clear categorization?
There's not a clear categorization, I would say. I would say that many leaders do remain or do use transactional leadership style because it's straightforward.
Hmm.
Short term is effective. It's the style is rooted in clear exchange and established processes. So I would say that for younger leaders, in terms of their experience, transactional leadership and especially contingent reward is the one that can be preferred. And even thinking about developing them, they should try it. They should try transactional leadership before they move forward to transformational leadership. So it's more about my experience as a leader than a generational issue. If
Okay,
I'm using laissez-faire, if I'm using transactional leadership, or if I'm using transformational leadership.
this makes sense. But now, I mean, now we've heard these terms so much. Can you maybe give us a bit of an explanation of what you understand under these terms and what even is the full range leadership model?
The full range leadership model spans from laissez-faire, so that's a non-leadership or an avoidance behavior from the leader. So it's something where he is not active and not effective in terms of communicating with his employees. And in laissez-faire, I would say still the leader doesn't even care about this, what is being done by
Hmm.
his workforce. Then we move forward, but still this can be effective if only the team does know what they do. Then we move forward on this continuum to transactional leadership, and this is contingent reward and management by exception. And here we have in total three leadership behaviors: management by exception passive, management by exception active, and contingent reward. Management by exception passive stands for us as leaders waiting till somebody does make a mistake.
Mhm.
And then we do act as a leader. But that's focusing on this, that somebody does fall without supporting him or her. Management by exception that is active is not waiting for mistakes, but a little bit more we're monitoring closely this what is being done by our workforce, and we actively prevent any possible mistakes that can take place. So whenever we're thinking about management, active management by exception, I would say you need to follow the safety checklist exactly as it is. And I'll be checking you at 3 p.m. as an example from a perspective of active management by exception from a leader. And then we have contingent reward, the third element in transactional leadership, which is exchange of rewards for somebody's performance. So if you perform, there is a reward. So if you complete the project on time, according to the schedule, you will receive a 10% bonus. That's a typical phrase that can be used by a manager whenever he's contingently rewarding his employee using transactional leadership. And that's the second out of those three leadership styles. And the third one, the most major one, is the one which is transformational leadership. And it has four elements and those four elements are individual consideration. So I'm looking at you as a human being. I'm looking at you as an individual. I'm not looking at a cohort of my employees. It's not a group. Everybody is individual, and everybody has his, her own passions, his, her own life, his, her own background, his, her own needs. For
Mhm.
me as a leader, it's if I want to be effective using this leadership style, I have to know each one of you, uh, and this way built a proper relationship, built an eye level relationship with my employees. That's the first element of those four elements that are in transformational leadership. The second one is intellectual stimulation. So that's related to challenging the status quo, encouraging my followers to be creative and to be innovative. So it's setting the bar high, not only for me, for myself, but as well for you as my employees. And what I've found very often is that if I allow people to grow, they give their best in return. But that's me having a trust in this that you are a human being who can reach that bar. So challenging a status quo is something that can not only intellectually stimulate my workforce, but as well influence the third I in transformational leadership, which is inspirational motivation. So that's understanding you and understanding your needs. Are you looking for a bonus? Maybe not necessarily. Maybe time is more precious for you. Maybe a need to pick up your kid from the kindergarten is your basic humanistic need, which is a reward that you're looking for. So it's about inspiring, motivating you, and understanding you, but at the same time sharing a clear and inspiring vision about this, what direction the company is going towards, to sharing this vision with you, and then asking you to jump on that train. If only you can understand the vision, and I do believe you can, and then as well follow me as the one who can guide you through the times whenever you are in the position that you want. And then there's the fourth element of the fourth I in transformation, realized influence. People are looking at me as their leader. And my role is to be a role model for them. So idealized influence is walk the walk or walk the talk and be a role model. Whenever I'm looking at my boss, whenever I'm looking at my superior, is this a person with whom I could be a friend after 5 p.m.? Is this a person who's open enough to talk with me, having me as his employee on an island? That's what I'm looking for as an employee whenever I'm working with my superior. So 4 elements are in the transformational leadership. Once again, it's idealized influence, inspiring motivation, intellectual stimulation, and individual consideration.
Thank you so much for explaining the model. I feel like I have a much better understanding now of what this means. But can I ask you, because before you said that all of the leadership styles have kind of, their advantages, or at least that's how I understood it. But now, from what it sounds like to me, the transformational style is by far the best. So how do you then say that the others also have their advantages, or that they can also be used?
Sure. Thank you very much for this question. Oh, yeah. I would say that whenever I'm thinking about laissez-faire, the least effective and the least active from the perspective of the employee and the leader, it can be effective whenever I'm working with a very mature team, a project team that has the capabilities, has the competences, has the will to move any rock and to move forward, no matter how they are being led. Yeah, so if I have a BS leader, me as an employee, if I'm mature enough, I still can develop the project. I still can work within this project and reach my personal goals. Hopefully, the ones that are as well linked with the organizational. But another good example where laissez-faire can work well is somewhere where there's a lot of creativity needed. Let's say marketing agencies can prefer such a leadership style, or research and development departments in companies as well might prefer to be led by a laissez-faire leader. That's the first out of those three leadership behaviors. The second one is transactional leadership, and this one can be as well effective. This one as well can have some benefits, and the benefits are here built around this, that it's well structured. It can be efficient because it is quite straightforward. It's short-term effective, and the style is rooted in exchange, and the processes are well established. So companies that can thrive within this leadership behavior are the ones where processes are well set and are well working. Logistic companies, manufacturing companies, production companies, factories. Whenever I have clear expectations and I share this with my team, and they're willing to as well have an immediate reward in exchange, this can be effective. So transactional leadership is as well a style that can be used. And as I've mentioned a little bit before as well, it's good if we as leaders, on our span of our own development, start from contingent reward before we move to the one which is, in my eyes, the most effective. Not only in my eyes, because this theory is based on Avolio, Bass, and Burns research. Yeah. And as well, it is very well documented. There's a MLQ questionnaire which is behind it, which can allow us to as well check the readiness of the company, or how the company is made sure to use transformational leadership as the major leadership behavior expected from their leaders.
But then what are these processes that would need to be in order for a company to be ready to have a transformational leader?
Mm, I would say that it's you're talking or you're asking me about the processes. I would say it's more about the skills that I would expect from the CEOs or the C-suites in the company. And the skills are empathy
Mm-hmm.
and awareness of this, how we can effectively use situational leadership, because this will allow the C-suites to move on through empathy and known situational leadership, which is a different concept, towards implementing the full range leadership model within the company. Uh, and my approach as a leader can be more individualized,
Mm-hmm.
considering one generation, and more contingent reward, considering let's say, an older generation.
This makes sense because they're also used to it now, or this is maybe a style that they've experienced more. So it makes sense if this is something that you use more with the older generation or with just people who have been in the workforce longer.
On top of it, Jana, I would say that transformational leadership creates real impact
Mm-hmm.
whenever there's trust among leaders,
Mm-hmm.
trust among me and my team, because it does foster high trust. But on the other hand side as well, my employees might expect psychological safety. So if I build the conditions where trust is thriving and there is psychological safety in the team, transformational leaders will thrive, and this leadership behavior will work very well for driving any organization forward or any organization through a change. The benefits are mostly related to more commitment from the employees' side, and it improves as well employees' retention. So we're more loyal towards the company.
Yeah.
This is very often a cost for a company whenever we lose high performers because of the way that they're being led.
Yeah. I have to say, while I was also, because I tried to read some articles about the leadership styles as well, so I tried to get into the topic. And I felt like when I was reading it, the transformational style is the least focus, or at least how I, from what I understood, kind of least focuses on the like productivity and the, kind of go, 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 and like you need to deliver. And I feel like that's maybe more what the transactional requires, because also, as you said, I feel like the transactional style requires more of an, you do something and you get something for it, whether that's positive
Yeah,
or negative.
that's an exchange. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And
Mhm.
it was very interesting for me to read because I feel like that's also what I then told Aline, who I've been working with for many years and who has led me for now maybe 3 to 4 years, because I can really see that she is a transformational leader for me. I mean, she only has me, right? So then, but
Yeah.
I can really see that I'm being transformationally led because I really feel like she really focuses on me. So it's really, I think we have a really nice kind of cooperation
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
also it's
Yeah.
always like and that's also why I've been working with her for so many years, right? So I feel like it's also not typical. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm 22, I've been working here
Yeah.
for 4 years, right? So it's yeah. So it's been a while, and then also this, but then it's also, of course, it's also because I had
Mhm.
such an amazing experience with a transformation leader, or at least that's my experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very happy to hear that. I did, and I'm very happy that you as well can assess it from your perspective. I can only confirm this. I know as well, Aline, and no matter that we're not on the close contact, but I can see that at least out of those four eyes in transformational leadership, what I can feel sitting here in Warsaw, in Poland, so far away from Vienna, is that there's always from her side individual consideration towards me.
Yeah.
She's a person who's always to the point and always not, I would say, aware of this, that there might be some needs that I do have. And whenever I do express those needs to the headquarters of MDI, there's always a response which makes sense, and there's meaning behind this response. So individual consideration as well, I can feel as an element of transformational leadership from her end. So I'm
So would you
happy
confirm?
that you can as well. Once again,
Yeah.
sorry, I didn't hear
Oh no,
you.
sorry. I just said, can you confirm that
Oh
you
yeah,
also feel like
yeah,
she's a transformational leader?
yeah, yeah. Could be, yeah.
Do you feel like, because now that I've been listening to you talk about the different styles, do you feel like there's something, or in the trainings that you deal with these styles, do you feel like you kind of give specific tips, or like there's a specific way in how you go about in the trainings dealing with these models?
Absolutely. I would say that people, or at least the generations that I very often do have in the classroom, are the slightly older generation, 35 plus, because those are leaders. They have some years of experience within the company, and this how they do behave is based on this, what they have learned. Yeah, and very often working here in Poland, I can see that transactional leadership is present.
Mhm.
And I would say that transformational leadership is it's not only a trend, but as well, it is very often an eye opener for them that we can behave differently.
Mhm.
I don't have to behave the same way as a middle manager as my boss does behave with me. Maybe he's not yet aware of that. And then whenever I'm thinking or talking or going through transformational leadership, of course, there's a set of exercises that can allow them still to develop those four eyes within them to understand them better and mostly see the benefits for the workforce. So it's movement from considering my own ego
Mhm.
as a leader towards considering my employees, their needs, their values. And only then I am a transformational leader.
Mhm.
Whenever the focus is not on my needs, my expectations, my deadlines, my organizational goals, but focusing on this, what value can this employee bring to the team in which she is, and allow this person to grow. And then I do believe in this, that whenever I allow this person to flourish, then she can give her best, even going beyond the organizational set goals.
And how do you, because this, I mean, this makes perfect sense to me also when I hear this, but how, in a training, how do you bring it to the people, or what methods do you use maybe to kind of make people realize, or maybe make people go
Mhm.
towards more of a transformational approach?
Mhm. Well, first of all, I would give myself around 10 minutes to allow them to understand the model.
Hmm. Of
So
course.
I'm going through all of those seven leadership behaviors that are clustered in those three leadership styles. And then I do make some cards. And on each card, there are statements. And I love them to think about those statements, where those statements do fit the best. And I work within subgroups, and each subgroup has the same set of puzzles or cards. And then we do compare this among us. And then I very often do not even need to come up with my own solution that I do have to this puzzle, because they're discussing this among those subgroups and come with their solution that they have to argument towards me. And if I'm carefully attentive, very often they come with ideas that are beyond my own expectations. And this way, I do show them that what you've just done, dear delegates, is you had the platform to do your best. And I, as a trainer, as a tutor, was trying to just lead you transformationally. Have you
Mm,
experienced this by me? If
mm.
yes, they understand it even more deeper.
This is so interesting. Okay, this makes a lot of sense. Do you have any recent experiences that you can remember where you applied this and maybe you even saw a change in one of your attendees?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I would say within one of my attendees, it's never a short-term journey. So no matter how much the training can be inspiring for the delegates, no matter that how happy they can be on the happy sheets. Uh, what happens is from one or another occasion, they stay in touch with me and they'd like more insight into this, how they can transform themselves better. What can they do in particular or specific cases and situations? So peer coaching session, which is following after most of our trainings, which takes place, let's say, a month afterwards, allows us as well to see what we have already introduced towards the way that we do behave and communicate with our team and what's still missing. And if there's something still missing, what can other peer coaches, how can other peer coaches guide us? Or how can I, as a facilitator, guide you further to work with your individuals in a more transformational way? But that's always an exchange, and very often it's not only about the peer coaching session, which is happening one afterwards, but I do have sometimes requests or questions afterwards. Yes, tell me a little bit more. I have a specific case
Mhm.
and I'm a little bit lost. What can I do? And then the trust in this that the person does come back to me only shows that there is some added value whenever I'm talking about transformational leadership with them in the classroom.
So then in these sessions, have you seen an impact that this has made on the people? Do you maybe remember that someone said to you, oh, and this has changed the way I'm working and the way that I behave with my employees? Or do you feel like it has made an impact?
Mhm. I do believe it does. Yeah, no matter that it's only verbatim expressed by them, it's only words. And I'm not confirming this through, let's say, some shadowing them in the workplace. But whenever they do express what they have changed in the way that they do behave, I can see that they're moving from transactional, from contingent reward behavior towards the more inspiring one. And what they do get in return is one of the examples is one of the managers, a woman, has told me that I thought that I'm going to lose this employee, no matter his potential. I thought that the market is so attractive towards him to move forward within her career. But whenever I've changed the way that I do communicate with her from a less directive one, from a less only performance driven, that you have to do this and deliver this, and have focused on more empathetic approach from my end, then I've seen that she as well, as an employee, has transformed. And now she has stayed within the company. So I just only can confirm through this that the reward for the manager is that it has improved employees' retention because she's on the team still as an
Wow.
employee.
But that's amazing. I mean, that's also very great feedback to you as well, that you were also able to make that impact, no, with that attendee.
I wouldn't say so. Well, thank you very much for those words, Jana. I would say that I've just planted the seed, and that's my role within a 3-day learning session. And if this seed can further flourish, I'm very happy for that leader, for that manager.
Yeah.
So my role is minimal in terms of this, that there are some tools, there are some concepts, there is a certain context which the person can understand. If there's a mutual trust, a psychological safety environment within the classroom for the delegates to share their issues, their problems with me, then the person can grow. But very often the growth is happening beyond the classroom.
Mm-hmm. Of course,
But if
no.
the seed has been planted well, let him move forward. And there's nothing better when the person learns on his her own experience.
Yeah, this is a very great approach. But why do you feel like most people, most leaders are still in the transactional zone, maybe? Why do you
Yeah.
feel like, because I mean, from what you say, it sounds so easy, no? It's just listen to your employees and, you know, be an empathetic leader. But why isn't everyone like this?
Well, there's more, the more there's more to, I would say transactional leadership style is short-term effectively. And the rewards can come and it's straightforward. It doesn't mean it's not so complex as transformational leadership is. So for some managers who are not yet sure about this, how they can work, they're focused on more performance because they're not so secure about their own areas of responsibility. And if you're not so sure about this, how you are being assessed as a leader, then you naturally move or have a tendency to move towards transactional
Mm-hmm.
behavior because then you're focused on performance. But
Mm-hmm.
being focused on performance doesn't mean that the team does grow because people are human beings and have their psychological needs. If I
Yes.
don't address those psychological needs, I'm as a leader lost. But still, I'm focused on delivering results, but very often my own results, without sharing a vision which is understood, a vision that is not only understood but is where appreciated by the employees. I'm not caring. I'm not caring about my workforce. If they don't see that I'm an ambassador of their interests, they don't feel appreciated as well. So why should they follow? They're going to follow the goals, but they're going to do the minimum that is expected from them to survive, as well as me as a transactional or as a laissez-faire leader. That's
Mm-hmm.
why I want to work only with the ones who are ready to move forward on this continuum and be aware of this, that there's the third behavior, which is transformational leadership.
And what do you feel like has made this change between laissez-faire and transactional towards transformational?
Mm, I would say that the change is based on my own, as a leader's maturity, understanding that performance can be achieved as well in a different environment, in a different environment, not only in a different atmosphere. I want my people to be satisfied. I want my team to use their strengths. I want my team to use their talents.
Mm-hmm.
Because only when I'm capable of exploring their talents and matching the roles within the departments to their strengths, I can achieve higher engagement, higher loyalty, and higher performance.
This makes sense. Do you feel like, because we were also talking about the shift, do you feel like the the era that we're in right now, the more digital era where we have the hybrid settings and we have the rise of AI and social media and like all of this, do you feel like this maybe reinforces also the transformational style? Do you feel like that's maybe also a reason why it's maybe on a rise, or maybe why people push more towards the transformational style?
True. Thank you very much for this question. I would say totally right here. I would say good leadership will increasingly look in the future as transformational leadership. Why so? Because AI, which we very often are using now, will automate
Mm-hmm.
transactional tasks and free us as leaders to focus on vision, to focus on inspiring others, to focus on building the proper culture within our team, with the complex human challenges that each one of us does have.
Hmm.
So digitalization will transform and automate the tasks which are related to transactional behavior and free us to be more inspiring, more oriented towards human beings.
I think that's a very great point you made also about the automated processes with AI, because I feel like it really shows that the only thing that AI can do are human qualities, right? So this is then where the transformational leader comes in, because they are the ones who can implement the soft skills, the empathy, and being respectful towards the employees. So I think this, I would say this, I would also see a connection there. So then, how do you think the rise of AI changes how leadership looks like? Do you think maybe there will be even a fourth leadership style that can come with AI?
Mm, yeah, dealing with AI, and that's one of the topics as well that we at MDI are working with now. This definitely will transform the way that we do communicate with our employees. But as well, I would say that the post-COVID times, the digitalization has already shifted and changed the way that we do behave, because the digital area challenges transactional leaders to monitor performance of their employees without direct oversight. Without direct oversight.
Yeah.
While transformational leaders are provided with new communication tools, social medias, which they can use to communicate and address individual needs of their employees, staying in the role of a coach or a mentor towards their
Mhm.
employees. So digitalization without AI already has shifted the mindset of the ones who wanted to be transformational leadership, because there are so many channels of communication that we as leaders can use to reach in an inspiring and motivating way our employees. And AI will definitely as well influence our behavior. In what direction will we go? As I've already said, it might, or it will for sure automate transactional tasks and free us to be more human oriented.
Then do you feel like the laissez-faire and the transactional styles could kind of die out at some point?
They're more related to the traits, to this whom I am as a person, as a human being.
Okay.
So I would say that technology not necessarily does affect the way that I do prefer to lead my team. It's good to know that those different styles do exist and still can exist, and there's nothing really. And as I've said, there are some areas where each style can be efficient, can be effective. Laissez-faire can be effective in B&D departments. Laissez-faire can be effective whenever I'm having a very mature project team. Transactional leadership is very effective, let's say, in school setups and educational institutions or in the army. You know? So there are organizations where these styles can flourish too.
So the styles more depend on the person themselves, but not necessarily the time that we're in.
They do depend on the person, on the individual, not on the time, but as well they do depend upon the culture which is within the company, the systems and the structures that are set in the company. I would say that strategies, according to Chandler Jr., strategy sets the system
Mhm.
and the structures. Systems and the structure affect my own behavior as a leader and as an employee. So it's more related to the organizational culture, which is within each segment of the business. Then my personal traits. Yeah, there might not be place necessarily within, let's say, the army to use transformational leadership style.
Yeah, this makes sense. This makes sense. So even though even though now maybe from this conversation we do agree that a transformational style is very useful, and I mean sounds great, no? That's also what we've been saying, it that you can inspire others by the way that you behave towards them, and by the way that
Mm.
you know, like how you also show your human skills. But as you say, I think it maybe there may be specific areas and specific sectors where it doesn't make too much sense to apply.
Well, I would say that even listening to you now, I would say that I've experienced this in one of my classes. I had a very mature group of employees, and I wasn't feeling really too well that day as individually. I had a headache, whatever. But we're working very, let's say, correctly during the day. But after lunch, I've told them, well, I can see that you're mature enough to lead the next module. Let
Mm-hmm.
me excuse myself and let me go back to my hotel room, have a short nap. But I can trust and see that you can work towards the educational goals that I have set to you. Go
Mm-hmm.
through it by yourself as a group. So that's a way of maybe acting more laissez-faire.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, so you were laissez-fairing them.
Absolutely. I was not active and not effective
Yeah.
as a human being, but I could see that this leadership behavior can work at
Mhm.
this moment for this mature group of individuals. And they
Yes,
were
I
so
think
happy to come with something very creative and very different that I would do with them, staying in the room with them and leading the discussion.
I think now that you're saying that, I think this makes so much sense. And maybe it's not as black and white as I maybe thought. Because again, from reading the articles, I was super certain that this is the way to go. But I think you're right. I think there are maybe benefits to both, and maybe it really is just more dependent on the situation and
Mhm.
on the specific setting.
Yeah, but let's not forget about transformational leadership. It has so many benefits. You have
Oh, of
those
course.
highly engaged, motivated team. It fosters innovation, promotes organizational effectiveness, and develops future leaders.
Yeah,
And
of
as well, leading through this, I can expect that I lead the team to higher morale and extra effort that I
yeah.
do get in exchange from them.
But then I still think it's also not very it's not very logical to expect a leader to be transformational all the time. I mean, as we saw from your example, I think this is also something that just can occur. Sometimes due to natural
Mhm.
circumstances, you might be a bit more laissez-faire, you know? So I think maybe, so would you then recommend to generally push more towards a transformational style, kind of maybe let's say 80% of the time, and then 20% of the time use any of the other styles?
Mm. Thanks for this question. I would say first master contingent reward because it's more straightforward. It's the most effective transactional component. So master first contingent reward early on, but commit daily to
Mhm.
developing your transformational behaviors as they do drive long-term success. And a good example of this would be the one that I did have whenever I was still working as a leader at Pepsi-Cola. I was led by a manager who had performance as the only factor that was reliable for him. But after several years of cooperating together, of course, there was some burnout within me as a leader. But then the culture shifted, came a new GM, new general manager, and then we moved from performance-driven company towards performance and
Mhm.
purpose-driven company. And whenever this has been implemented in our daily activities, this allowed me as well to flourish more as a leader.
And how can you, is there any specific advice you can give to companies going towards the purpose and performance driven form?
It's more related to generational values. Gen Z
Mhm.
can be influenced, and naturally, younger generations tend to favor this growth focused or inspirational aspects of the way that the leader does communicate with them. So that's related to transformational leadership, and as well, if it makes sense for them and it's value driven, value based, and the values of the company, the values of the manager are well aligned with my own values as an individual, then it's easy for the manager, for the leader to move forward with this employee. But that's related to deeply understanding this who we are as human beings, showing not only empathy but as well understanding that each individual is in a different situation, and it's each situation might be as well be different.
Mhm.
So that's related to me working on this, so that leadership is complex. If we move beyond just laissez-faire and just transactional leadership, but
Of course.
complex doesn't mean that we can't work that way.
Mhm.
We can.
And of course, nothing happens overnight, no? Also, that's what you said before about when you gave your example of the training. It's even one training, even if that's maybe what we'd like to believe, but it's not going to change someone's entire life. I think maybe also through experience and through, continuing to work with these styles, I think we can really see what maybe works best for like ourselves.
Mm.
But I would also like to ask you, because you just mentioned working with the Gen Z, and now I would like to know, because I mean I can also imagine there are multiple teams where you have multiple generations working together. So how do you then, what do you think are skills for leaders working with multiple generations at once? Because I can imagine it's quite challenging if multiple or like several kind of expectations towards leadership come together.
Mhm. Mhm. I'll go back to the first question that you've asked me here during our interview, Jana, and it's my superpower, and my superpower is total contextual adaptability. And behind this is understanding that I'm ready to tackle any situation with any person. But that means that there has to be a deep understanding of the situational leadership model behind this within me as a leader.
So do you then advise this to other leaders as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Very often we do work. Before I do introduce the full range leadership model, I do work with my delegates about personal traits, and one of the personal traits which is covered by me is empathy. But then I work as well on more simplistic leadership models, and one of them can be related to situational leadership. That's Hersey and Blanchard's concept of this, that we do adapt
Mhm.
to the situation, to the individual, and then I can move forward with developing them, having in mind them as human beings who are in front of me.
Yes, this makes so much sense. Thank you for everything that you've said about the three leadership styles. I would like to ask you, because I mean, you seem so passionate about it. How did you find? How did this find you? The three range or the full range leadership model. What is your story behind it?
Well, I'm always interested, I would say, about concepts, about and what inspired me here, what moved me towards this concept is that it's very complex. It's covering really 7 leadership behaviors within one model. So that's allowing us to really, and this allows me to as well have an eye bird or eye view, sorry, an eye view on this, what is happening from the leadership perspective. So as it is complex, and if I can easily explain this, I'm very happy for my delegates, because then we can cover within any leadership training so many different leadership behaviors and relate those behaviors towards my activity and towards the effectiveness of each leadership style. How I found it, I not only read books, but as well I'm peer coached by other colleagues who can inspire me. And there's always something really interesting coming out of any conversation. And no matter your age, Yana, you're 22 now, I'm 58. I'm pretty much sure that as well I'll reflect after our conversation about this, not how it has gone for us, but about this, what I have learned from you, what I have learned from you.
And
And
what do you have learned from me?
it needs my reflection, I would say, but looking at you and listening to you, I can see your passion behind every sentence that is falling and behind those questions that you're asking to me. And what I've learned from you is, and I'm very happy from this conversation, that you can see around you in your environment a person who has positively influenced you. And if you're experiencing this, I can assume that the loyalty will be there. And that's what I've learned definitely from you, that if you're in the right environment and properly led, cooperation will be ongoing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for saying that. But I still, even before this, I still wanted to ask you, what inspires you about like working with this? I mean, is it maybe it's actually, maybe I can answer this myself. Maybe it's what you just said, that you talk to different people and different people inspire you, and maybe this is what inspires you about dealing with different leadership styles.
You said that you'd like to provide me with your answer. Do it, please. And then I'll give you as well one hint from my side.
Oh no, that was already what I meant. My idea was that maybe for you it is, because my question was what inspires you. Then my idea was maybe that you talk to different people who inspire you.
I'd say that no matter with whom I do talk about, let's say, leadership, I would say what's really inspiring for me in this model is understanding that if the transformational leadership is not only something that I can use in the organizational context, especially if I look at myself, I can use so many elements of the transformational leadership in my daily routines, in my daily behavior, in my family context as well.
Yes.
Of course, having kids, and I really do have adult kids, they're looking at me, can I be a role model for them? And that's idealized influence, the fourth eye within the transformational leadership. And there's always, every day, something that I can do for them to be a better role model for them. Will this be, let's say, how this will be perceived by them? It's always perceived by them in a way that they do communicate with me. And then I can see if it's working or not. But the benefit of this transformational leadership is that I can motivate them by inspiring motivational tools. I can influence them by individually stimulating their creativity, and that's related to intellectual stimulation. I can individually consider them, and this is individual consideration, the members of my family. And then the most valuable for me element is related to to idealized influence. Am I a role model for the persons around me in my environment? And that's not the environment in my work. That's the environment within my social work or within my family context.
I think it's really nice that you applied to other contexts as well, because I mean, to be honest, this is not something I've thought of before. Like I didn't think of this being something that you can also apply to non non-working contexts. So it was very nice to hear that this is also something that you consider as well.
Yeah,
And
it's going beyond, I would say, just the organization.
yeah, you're right. I mean, it doesn't stop, no? It doesn't stop with being a leader in an organization. It maybe also continues throughout your daily life.
Yeah, it doesn't stop, and that's a good point, I would say, because and as well, depending on the feedback that I do receive, there's always place for improvement, always.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Of
so
course.
for me, it's nothing really, no matter how well I do know the content or the concept, that's a theory, but then you have to practice that.
I mean, I think
And
this is, oh yeah, sorry.
and the rubber hits the road there, and then you get the feedback, but you have to be open for the feedback too, as a leader or as a human being. Sorry.
No, 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 please. I think this is a very good point because I feel like maybe that's also, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that's maybe also a big problem within leaders who have led for a long time, that they kind of maybe get a bit stuck in the ways that they've been leading so far, and that they are maybe a bit more unwilling to change because, I mean, this is how they've always done it. So I think the point that you just brought up about self-reflection and changing and listening to feedback and actually implementing the feedback, I think this is something that, I mean, I can see with especially older generations, if I may say so, is something that is a bit harder because, as I said, people who've been in the workforce for, I don't know, 30, 40 years, they've always like done specific things that
Absolutely,
way.
absolutely.
So it's very hard, I feel like, to
To move
change
forward,
that.
yeah, to move forward. They're stuck in their comfort zone.
Yeah.
It might be like this, and trust me or not, but there's less energy
Mhm.
needed or there's less energy needed from me as a leader to move from my comfort zone. A change means energy expenditure, and not everybody is ready to do that. People
Because it's
prefer to stay in their comfort zone, and if it has been working for me for 20, 25 years as a leader, but that's as well a trap for the organization, because if it was working 1 year ago, doesn't mean that it's working now.
Yes, you're right. I mean, this is also, as we've just said, this is also something that would require someone to kind of look more introspectively, right? So it's work to do with yourself and it's not something you can assign to others or that you can like push on other people. It's something that really requires yourself. And I think this is a very good and maybe very important thing to take from this. Yes, because I feel like yeah, as I said, I feel like it's easy to kind of assign fault to others or to say what is needed, because I mean that's also, you're used to assigning things, right? You're used to commanding or kind of talking to people and making sure that they do what they need to do. But it's also maybe important to see for yourself what you can also change.
Absolutely, and that's growth on my end. That's the maturity that I do expect from each leader. So move beyond just being a manager and expecting performance towards being a leader. Self-reflection part, which I'm hearing from you, is something it's allowing me to be as well more self-aware. And
Mhm.
this allows me to grow as a human being. And if I'm a better or a different human being, I can be as well a different or a better leader too for my team.
Yes, of course.
So interesting, this conversation.
Yes, I completely agree. I wanted to ask also, because before that you mentioned that you read books on this topic. Do you maybe have any recommendations on the topic, if our listeners want to read a bit on this? Or maybe you have a podcast, maybe you have, I don't know, a video or something that you can recommend if people want to find out more about this.
Well, I would say, well, I would say that a podcast which inspired me lately is related to the one which is coming from Ian McGilchrist,
Mhm.
and that's a Scottish or Welsh philosopher, but as well psychiatrist, and he's talking about this how we in the Western world are very much working with our left hemisphere, and that's in our brain, and forgetting to use or not allowing us to use the right hemisphere, which is responsible for a little bit different activities. And the get and grab left hemisphere is very often a short-term reward, which is close to us working in a transactional format or using transformational format. But exploring deeper ourselves and moving beyond our left hemisphere and moving towards as well, seeing the context, understanding the purpose, reflecting more, allows me to move towards my using as well more my right hemisphere, and then as well becoming a more transformational leader.
Mm-hmm. Can you say again what the name of the podcast was?
Ian McGilchrist.
Gilchrist with an
MC, and then GIL.
Okay.
Christ as Christ.
Okay.
Yeah, McGilchrist.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I have one last question for you as we're coming to end to our conversation. I wanted to ask you if you could travel back in time, what advice you would give to yourself as starting out as a young leader and trainer.
Of course, yeah, very good question. I would say I would prioritize more inspirational motivation and intellectual stimulation. Focus less on your, let's say, on impression of this whom you are, and focus more on those two core transformational components to align tasks with the higher purpose to my employees and encourage continuous innovation and continuous problem solving by challenging my workforce through setting high standards, high bar, high expectations, intellectually as well, stimulating them to solve the problem by themselves, not necessarily expecting me to do this for them.
Okay, thank you so much, Marcin. Do you have any last words for our audience, or in general? Is there anything you want to get off your chest?
Not really. I would say, first of all, it was a great pleasure, Jana. And is there anything that I would like to express? I would say that think about your people and the ones that you are leading, and truly understand your team members' aspirations, their needs, and their strengths beyond their current role requirements. So focus more on the people and not necessarily on the short-term goal. Of course, it is important to deliver the call, but if you know their aspirations, their needs, their strengths,
yes,
the goal will be achieved. Thank you so much, Anna.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Also to our listeners, thank you so much for listening if you have made it this far. I also wanted to say we have 2 other podcast episodes that I've done with Peter Grabuschnik and Anita Wimmer, and they're also definitely worth listening. So if you couldn't get enough of our conversation right now, there is more. So please listen to as much as you want and can. We also have a blog, and we also have a YouTube. The YouTube that this is on right now, where you can get many other different contents on leadership if you want to find out more on this. So thank you so much.